It's 11:59. We're going to start a minute early today. I'd like to welcome everybody to the regular monthly board meeting for January for Huntsville Housing Authority. And please let the record show that all commissioners are in attendance except for Commissioner Lowe at this point, and we're hoping he'll join remotely here shortly. But all other commissioners are present. At this time, everybody's had a chance to review the minutes. They were sent out last week. If anybody's got any comments or questions about the minutes, please come forward with those. Otherwise, we'll entertain a motion for approval.
Motion for approval.
Commissioner Sullivan.
I'll second.
Mr. Willis seconded. All those in favor of approval of the minutes from the December board meeting, December 19th board meeting, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Unanimously approved. Any old business to come before the board at this time? There being none, we'll proceed with the new business, and at this time I'll turn the meeting over to our executive director, Mr. McGinnis.
Thank you, sir. We're going to jump right in. We have financial services.
Okay.
So we'll turn it over to you, Teresa.
Alrighty. My first item is to ask the board to act on a resolution approving the project-based low-rent public housing operation budget revision number 1 for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2023. HUD requires the Board of Commissioners to approve the project-based low-rent public housing operation budget. We are revising the original budget to more accurately align actual and projected costs to budget amounts. The purpose of this request is to obtain approval for fiscal year end 3/31/2023 project-based low-rent housing operating budget revision. HUD requires for approval. The revised budget reflects a net increase in unrestricted net position of $192,792.51 compared to a net decrease in unrestricted net position of $71,386.90. And I have the attachments. Now I have provided 15 explanations. Did you want me to read through each one of these, or do you want me to highlight the ones that, which way would you like me to do?
It'll be fine to highlight, but I think there's so many here, if we could
If I could condense
have discussion, have questions as we go, probably as you
Okay.
cover each one.
All right. So the first one I'd like to talk about, of course, is the HUD PHA operating grant increase of 42%. And this is due to our budget was only $500,000. But to meet our 90% obligation by February 2023, we drew down the additional amount allowed in operations of $733,629. Also, $300,000 of this increase is due to the Johnson's Towers elevator renovation that you approved. So we can draw those funds from capital fund and cover the costs of the 1406
Right.
operation money. And so that line item applies to the HUD operating grant. And also you will see that same increase on the second page of the financials as a capital asset addition. Now, this will happen only if we get a billing before March 31st of 2023. If we do not, then we will push that back and we will do the draw when we receive it. And I may be including that in our 2024 budget. It just depends on the timing of the invoice, okay?
So the 300,000, is that all in estimated?
The total cost was $686.
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
But I thought we would account for $300,000 if we got the bill by the end of the fiscal year. If not, you will see that total $686 in the 2024 budget.
Okay.
Okay?
That's expensive.
All right. Also, as I have made reference to, the service fee revenue has been decreased due to the lawn care services that we had estimated it to be higher, but we haven't been able to service as many sites as we would like, so we lowered that budget. And the other income is due to that settlement check that we received of $225,126.
Some of the sites that we couldn't cover, which is, they're
I'm
still
sorry.
under the contract that we,
For the lawn care, yes, Well, it's been a challenge getting lawn care personnel to stick with us. We'll hire some, they leave. They've been able to service Northwoods from what I understand, and I believe they picked up another site also. But to be able to cover all the sites, we have to work our way up to that. So we don't have as much revenue as we thought we would have. That makes sense? Okay. All right, moving forward down in administration. Of course, we had audit fees are final. Legal is increasing because when you have evictions, of course you pay a lot higher legal fees, which actually that increases his line when we spend money with him.
On that number 4, remind me what
the other income
subsidy settlement is.
We had a settlement. We had entered with several housing authorities. It's been some years, 4 or 5 years ago, when HUD recaptured our subsidy and we sued with a group of housing authorities, and we finally got our settlement check this year. So that was back, I think, might have been 2017. That's when we had, that's when we had that lawsuit. So it finally came through. So that was other income. You're welcome. So moving forward to total administration, our audit fees are final, so our final cost is the $29,295. Advertising and marketing, that's been slightly increased. Legal, as I stated, it's due to an increase in tenant evictions. We didn't have very many of those in the prior year because of the moratorium. Training and travel is explained by an increase by all staff members attending emphasis training. We've been attending FEDAP training, that's executive director's training. So that line item has been increased for this particular budget. And other administrative costs is due to us bringing our on-site cloud hosting local instead of with our provider for the software. So we had an increased cost in that line. And total tenant services is due to our resident services being able to travel and attend training, and also our resident councils and funding them. So if we move forward to our second page of our financials, in total utilities, this line only increased by 7%, and I increased the line items that were trending higher. So we are still within budget. It just really depends on what the weather represents as far as how cold. We really had a cold snap in December, and that isn't reflected here. As far as moving forward to total maintenance in materials, I wanted to give you a more detailed background of that increase. So with LR Patton, we are going to have to buy the stoves and refrigerators, and we think we're going to have about maybe 40 apartments ready. So that cost is $48,000. We haven't incurred that cost, but we expect to incur that. Also, our AC units at the scatter sites, we have replaced 10 of those this year already, and that has totaled $62,414. Cersei Homes needed concrete repair to pass our inspection, REACT inspection. That was $12,100. Stone Manor has also had to replace 4 AC units that totaled $32,000. And then with Johnson Towers, I don't know if you remember, last year we planned the previous year we planned to replace those toilets at Johnson Towers, but that did not happen until this year. And so that total was $88,759. So that comes to $243,173 in additional materials that were not planned for when we did the original budget.
So the stoves and refrigerators at LR Patton, were they not included in the
They were not.
$4 million
They were not.
renovation? That was just for the construction?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And so you will see that line increase, and for next year also we will finish. We have to buy 20 additional toilets. We did have some already, and we have to finish the stoves and refrigerators for the remaining units. So that will be forthcoming. Okay. Also, when we get to total protective services, I've continuously said that this line item was over budget due to our estimate of that contract. So I've increased this line item to reflect what we think the actual cost is going to be. Collection loss, of course, I said that the year-to-date number of collection loss is $133,630. That's how much that was approved as of December. And the fourth quarter of the month is usually always our higher amount that we end up writing off. And then we will offset that with any collection loss money that we get through the MIS system, okay? Now, also speaking to casualty loss, I have a breakdown of casualty loss, as you have heard me speak to, that our deductible did increase to $25,000 this year. So at Johnson Towers, we had a fire with a $10,000 deductible because we were under the old deductible. LR Patton had a $10,000 loss, and Johnson Towers has an additional bill for another $25,000. And then Lincoln Park had a fire. So what happened was we received that money in the prior fiscal year. So I wanted to keep the money and put it in a payable account, but the auditor told me we could not do that. We had to recognize that amount as income last year when we incurred the expense this year, okay? So that's the reason why that line item has increased by $72,000. Am I good? That's good?
It's good. So the breakdown that you gave us of all this stuff, great notes, great presentation. Will we get all the information? I saw bits and pieces what you were talking about, the 40 stoves and refrigerators, but some of the stuff wasn't in the points.
Right, I went back and I wanted to do a financial breakdown. I didn't have that at the time, but I can send that to you in an email on how that breaks down with this additional cost. Yeah, I can do that, absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So overall, the budget looks better. Dr. Dale Smith used to tell me he didn't like to see a loss. So this year, I'm projecting on the budget revision, we will have an increase of $192,000 will be the net increase in unrestricted net position of $192,792.51. It reverses a loss. So that is my presentation for the budget revision. And the form that you see attached also is the HUD form that we must use, HUD form 52574. That this is the resolution form that is required by HUD, and it's not a standard HHA form. And once it is signed, then we are responsible for sending this revised form to the HUD field office for this revision. Are there any questions?
I got a question, maybe, but I'm just, since it wasn't included in the $40 million renovation, the
$4 million.
$4 million, sorry.
Not 40.
I said $40 million. Renovation.
$47,000 some odd dollars and some cents. Yeah,
hopefully the stoves and the refrigerators will be upgrades to match the renovation.
Yes, they will. They are real ones. Yeah. And those were already spec'd out by the management team over there. And so we will probably order those from Home Depot or Lowe's, I can't remember. So we'll get those. They will be definitely great ones. And that's all I have for that.
Any other questions? Okay, we need to approve the resolution on the budget revisions. Is there a motion for approval?
Motion to approve.
Willie. Second by Commissioner Sullivan. Any further discussion this time? Questions, final questions, comments? Just like at home or at my office, all the costs are, everything's up.
Yeah, I just, my question is more a clarifying question, because I did spend some time with this when it was sent out. Are there recommended percentages that you try to hit with regards to, I saw in the revision in comment upon the revenue increase, and so is there a science that you use, or how are you deciding on the increases in certain areas?
Oh, okay.
Are there target percentages?
No, ma'am. I don't have target percentages. Basically, like, I'll start here. With total tenant revenue, that's really a variable based on.
So it's a line item by line item. So you're not comparing our budget to budgets of similar size, similar effect housing authorities to evaluate if our percentages are anywhere in range with others that operate similarly.
No, I don't. And just to explain operating subsidy, we know by March 31st where we stand because we've had actual, and then they tell us how much we're going to give January through
I think I have clarity there. Are there any recommendations that come out of the annual fiscal audit that say these are budgeted targets that we go by as well? Or you just wisdom of experience?
It's just wisdom of experience, knowing the numbers, and also our auditors don't bring that to our attention at any time. We basically, they're all driven by what happens within the agency. Operating subsidy comes from HUD. It's based on the number of units that we have. The proration is based on what Congress will pass. The service fees that we earn, management fees, that's based on how many units that are leased within our developments, and also our service fee revenue. So it's really driven by the activity of the authority.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Is benchmarking something you'd like to?
Absolutely, absolutely, but I think that's a bigger conversation. But I just want to get clarity on what it is. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? We've got a motion and second on the floor. Is there any other discussion or questions? All those in favor of the resolution as presented, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Unanimous. We do have Commissioner Lowe from Germany. He's soon. Oh, we're going to have him join the meeting. I don't know if he can hear us. It says the microphone is not working. We can hear him.
Okay.
And then, yeah, we got to.
Okay, so the year-to-date as of November 30th, 2022, and Commissioner Crutcher, my benchmark here is anything that's 10% or greater. I usually explain. So, having faith that you would approve the budget, this now has the current budget year-to-date numbers that you just approved that we're comparing to. Okay, I have that kind of faith that it will go that way. So, overall, the revenue is not, okay, let me start over. So the total revenue is at a negative 3% or a minus 3%, but there are increases and decreases. But the main offset here has to do with the CFP subsidy that we drew down in November, so that's causing the greatest variance on that line. If you move forward, total tenant services, I want to point out that we planned in the budget, but the FSS grant for Ross and the other FSS grant for HCD, those line items no longer have funds available. So we charged those salaries to this budget, and we incorporated that into the budget revision. If we move forward to page 2 of the financials, in total other down at the end of the page, this is mainly driven by, at this time, it looks like collection losses under this year-to-date budget, but we do know that it is at 133 right now. So that amount, we expect to be on target. I don't expect to be over, but we expect to be on target for this budget. So at the end of November 30th, 2022, our net increase is $838,050 in comparison to a budgeted amount of $345,195.01. And so those are all my financials for this period for November 30th.
Anybody got any questions? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That was a lot. Next report.
That it? All right, we appreciate it. The next one is from Public Housing, Terry Boyd. It's on you.
Good afternoon. Yeah, I am requesting board approval for the following. A resolution authorizing the executive director, CEO, to submit a request to HUD to decommission a public housing unit to provide a site office at Brookside Development. This is resolution 2023-02. As background for this action, in the request for board action, I stated that the Brookside Development located off Governor's Drive has never had an on-site office. When it was constructed in 1961, that was not felt to be a need, I guess. The residents have always gone to Johnson Towers, which is located on the opposite side of Governor's Drive, to pay their rent and to complete their re-exams. As the west side of Huntsville has continued to grow, the traffic has increased significantly on Governor's Drive, and it has become dangerous for residents to cross this main thoroughfare. Therefore, a unit has been identified at 2003A Brookside Street that can serve as a side office for the residents of Brookside. The residents were notified and asked for input. Many of them had requested that a site be developed on that side, and no negative comments were received. Does anyone have any questions?
So I do. I think that's a great idea. I didn't know they didn't have a rent office.
No.
And it's very, very busy. on the
Yes,
drive.
more so now than even
Yes.
2 years ago.
Right. So being that they were coming here, are we gonna have to hire another property manager, or will this person be?
No, our current staff will just make appointments on that side when they have, of course, there'll be a drop box there for rent, so they can go there at any time and leave the rent there. And then when they have appointments, anyone that's at Brookside will be able to just go to that side office. It'll be located at the first building on the west side of Brookside Street, which is the only one that goes straight through to Governor's Drive. Within that one building is already an offline unit that is used by the resident council. So that whole building, which is just 2 units, will be for resident services at that point. It's the first unit right there on Governor's Drive.
Okay, that's great.
Okay. Any other questions?
How many, we got 70-something units over there?
We have 72, so that would be 2 units offline.
70.
Which I think, even though we're taking another unit offline, it is such a needed, the last thing I want is for somebody to get hurt going across that street trying to pay their rent, or, and you know, we're at 40% elderly over there. So I think we need to take that into consideration.
Makes sense. Take units offline, but sometimes it makes.
I think the benefits outweigh that.
Is the resident council over there very active? Or are they existent?
I'll let Quentin,
In existence.
resident advisory, you know, that's not part of my area, but they have a pretty active resident council and always have. The meetings that I have attended were as a group, there's always representatives there, and they always talk about their monthly meetings that they have. So yes.
And those,
Since Macaulay's gone, she has the heart and soul over there.
a unapproved vacancy still gets a subsidy also. So it will still receive subsidy. When HUD takes it offline, you still receive some subsidy for that type of unit also.
Right, that'll increase. We do have units offline at other sites. In fact, we have a total of 14 units throughout our traditional public housing sites. So this will increase it to 15.
That's some of our most desirable housing over there. It seems like there's always a demand for units over there. The neighborhood keeps getting better and better over there. So. Very good. Anything else? Got anything? All right. Is there a motion for
You
approval?
had me at 40% seniors. Because I motion that we approve.
Yeah, it's kind of long overdue. It is busy, but it's always been really busy through there.
Yeah, I saw Tom shaking her head.
In fact, I remember when the consultant for the Choice Neighborhood was talking about the road, it's so busy that even the frontage along here, you'd think it's really suited for commercial and all, but it's like a thoroughfare through there.
I'll second.
You made the motion. Commissioner Cratcher, Commissioner Sullivan, second. Any other questions, comments? Not. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Got
Thank
Mr.
you.
Lowe in on that one.
I want to know that I learned
Unanimous.
Teresa's, I'm sorry, Terry's first name. Exactly, Teresa. No, I'm making a correction. Hey, I got, they got mixed up names.
Since Commissioner Lowe's joined us, did you have any comments about the previous presentation on the Chief Financial Officer made on the finances or anything? I think you may have already submitted some comments on that.
It was clear. I didn't have any direct comments.
Okay.
Was there any discussion by the commissioners?
Yeah, we had a lot of questions and comments, but we'll pass it
I'll read
over.
I'll read them out in the meeting.
Very good. Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
At this time, I believe, I think we had any more presentations, resolutions. It's back to the agenda here, but I believe we're at for Executive Director, CEO comments.
All right. Thank you, Terry and Teresa, for your reports. Definitely appreciate that. What I want to talk about is we're actually in a position. I've actually had comments with community leaders, board members, staff members about us and what we do as an agency. And really, it boils down to us as an agency being more out in the lead position in this community. One of the things that we're going to be doing over the next 4 weeks is recalibrating our strategic plan. We're going to really solidify our partnerships with MOUs, making sure that we're all on the same page, making sure that the people who come into the community, that we're on the same page, because if we're going to serve the residents in such a way to advance them, we need to make sure that we are operating with the same goals in mind. We also just kind of increase the accountability. You know, when I talk to people across the city, the housing authority is held to a higher accountability standard. But I want us all together as a community to be held to those same standards, because at the end of the day, what's going to happen if our children and families are going to grow, we're going to have partnerships. We can't do it all by ourselves. You know, this is an agency, we're serving close to 7,000 residents or more, and we just don't have the capacity to do what needs to be done to get people to the next level. But I think with our partnerships and identifying development opportunities and really just holding our staff and our board and residents and everybody accountable to grow, then I think what we'll see is a lot more people moving up and out. But we have to be intentional in doing that. Everything that we do moving forward, we just have to be intentional. I feel like as an agency, we've won a lot of conference championships. Now it's time to win a national championship. It's really time for us to have agencies across the country call and say, man, what are y'all doing as an agency to see so many residents grow and advance? I was just looking at some numbers the other day. Over the last couple of years, we've had close to 15 families in home ownership actually close on a house. I mean, that's transformative. To have families move up and out through home ownership. We formed partnerships with our COCC agencies. And 2 years ago, people said we were crazy for taking an extra 110 vouchers. But we're probably going to close out those vouchers before the end of the summer, before we actually, our time limit is up, because we're being intentional about putting people in houses. I want to thank our staff, Jaquisa and HCD, and everybody who's involved in doing that work, because it means something. And so I just want to say, man, moving forward, we're going to be very intentional about our approach. I think once everybody has the game plan, then we'll be able to say, okay, this might not be the team for you. But I think in the past, we haven't had a consolidated game plan that everybody's agreeing with. And there was a recommendation that Ms. Crutcher, we get together and kind of talk about looking at that plan, and working together. And I'm going to recommend my other colleague over here, Ms. Willie, to work with us on helping with the Resident Advisory Board as well, because I think, bringing you all in to work specifically in those areas is going to be crucial as we move forward. And then Mr. Fountain's offered some support, and I'm sure Mr. Sullivan as well, and Larry. We got to do this because nobody else is going to do it. Every conversation I have, it's all about Huntsville growing, but until everybody has a seat at the table, especially our residents that we serve, we can't be the organization, we can't be the city that we want to be if we are intentional in not being intentional. And I think sometimes we do that. We intentionally leave people behind. So we got to get to the point where we're intentional about helping people grow. So I say all that to say that by next month, hopefully by the next board meeting, we'll have some things in place where we'll be able to see the intention of where we're going. And my goal is to have everybody on board so that we can sing the same music. One of my son's favorite movies was Drumline. And one of his favorite parts is one band, one sound. And we got to have one band and one sound in order for us to move forward. Because I think the timing and the partnership that we have in place, if we don't get it now, we'll never get it. So I think we got to move forward. So that's all I have.
I don't know, has David been to a meeting? Have you been to one of our meetings?
No, I haven't.
Before, I don't know if you've introduced David and talked about his role.
Yeah, David
David Driscoll.
is working with us in PR. He and Lakeisha Wheeler. And we actually talked about this morning, about him just being intentional in capturing stories and opportunities to present to the media. Because again, the media shows up when something is negative. But we want them to be a part of this as we move forward and be intentional about sharing positive stories and opportunities for our residents, because that's going to be important as well. So he's going to be very instrumental in making sure the print media, video media, social media, we have all that covered, because again, people need to know the good things that are going on here and the people that we have. We have a lot of great individuals that work for this agency. Sometimes they don't get recognized or seen, but we want to be intentional even about doing that. A lot of knowledge, a lot of people who do a great job of keeping us out of harm's way. But I think now we're at a position where we know that we have to be different in what we're doing, our approach.
So you talked about formalizing some of these partnerships and doing some memorandum of understanding. We also were talking, you and I were talking about formalizing a presentation or like a prospectus sort of all of the partnerships. Is that something you can talk about for a minute?
Yeah, I think from where we stand, all these partnerships that are in place are great. And using even the Envision Center model, just having something where we know residents can walk to a certain place, or there's not a place that they can walk to in their community, they have transportation. But putting all this together on paper, in brochure form, where we can pass it out, again, where everybody can speak the language. It's not just me or board members or executive staff. Everybody knows exactly where we're going. Putting that in paper form or on digital form so that everybody knows exactly what we're doing, and being intentional about that, putting it in presentation form, because now, having a nonprofit established, we'll be able to get funds to help provide services for these organizations that we're going to be working with. I think all of that stuff is important, and again, just put it in a place where everybody can see it is going to be key as we move forward.
Do you have anything?
No, Mr. McGinnis and I have spoken at length, and I just fully support your vision and even the process, and I look forward to having more conversations. The only point that I'll add, to not be duplicative of what you've already said, is I can absolutely ascribe to a more clear focus on those that we want to go up and out. But we also need to acknowledge that there's just some that is and gonna be. And with our mental health numbers rising, the 65 and older demographic being the fastest growing demographic in our nation, they make up a lot of that is and gonna be. And so I just want to make sure that it's a both and not an either or.
That's a good point. Because some people just not mentally ready to take on what's happening in Huntsville. This is a struggle for me every day, but some people just not mentally ready for it. Some people are comfortable and they call Huntsville Housing and go to their home. So, I agree.
That's right.
The other day, I just left the Commissioners Conference, which is a great conference. I thought I had a bunch of questions for Teresa, but she kind of messed it up for me in her presentation. She was too smooth. But a lot of the classes were generated around how the board makes its money, how it saves money, kind of the general operation of which I would recommend if you get a chance, attend those classes in the future. That was fodder. I know now we may have some coming soon, but definitely for the new commissioners, get all the questions that you may have or may not have answered. There's usually a presentation that will cover what's on the top of your mind. One of the things that they mentioned there, though, is that what housing authorities do, if they don't do enough of, what I actually do is one of the presenters stated that you all do God's work. The problem is you don't tell enough people about the work that you do. So what I've heard is there's going to be a lot of that, in addition to holding people accountable. I've been a part of 2, I think, MOUs that they have a list of actual partners that Huntsville Housing Authority actually has. And the list is, first of all, immaculate. Has a lot of folks on there. I know partners who could actually come in and do some things. We also had a brochure in the past, the county outlaid that. So I think the template is there. Let's begin to get one for the vision. I as the Wealthy Child was part of that team and the youth bill team. So I've seen the partnership list. So all we have to do is, the template is there to hold the folks accountable. And then we can start making a difference in folks' lives. That's all I think.
Any public comments? Anybody sign up for public comments?
No public comment.
Mr. Anderson, you got anything for us today? You're just here in support.
Here to support.
Thank you for being here. Great to see you. Our commissioner comments kind of ran into, follow up to your comments, but does any commissioner have anything else they'd like to share and talk about? Nor do I. So nothing further. We'll adjourn the meeting.